Well, hello there. So I slept through that tornado, and I don't know how I did that. So I woke up this morning, boondocking, about 8 o'clock in the morning, and saw this notice on my phone that usually comes with a beep siren thing on the emergency notifications. And I guess I slept through that. It was like 3 o'clock this morning, tornado warning. Watch is a lesser of the warning. The warning is the real stuff. So yeah. Um and so the first thing I do is look around outside the car to make sure it was where I was parked originally. Because a friend of mine, I've told this story once before on YouTube, but a friend of mine that lived in on the way to Claremore, Oklahoma, on the main drag on the way to my college that I was going to at military college, lived in a trailer home, and it was kind of next to the road in a field. And so a tornado had come blowing through there, and he slept through it. And when he woke up, he was mad because he went to the door and his newspaper wasn't there. He was really mad about it. And so uh, he told me the story personally. And what had actually happened was he slept through the tornado, and the tornado picked up the entire trailer house and moved it down the street like 1 or 2 miles. And so his house was actually not where it was originally, and that's why the newspaper didn't come. So these things really do happen. I've been in two direct hit uh, tornadoes. One when my daughter was like 4 weeks old, and my big house, it was a 5-story house I had up by Memphis, and that was really wild. Uh, Beautiful sunshiny day, no wind, just absolutely beautiful. I had just gone out in the driveway to do a couple things on the cars and came back inside, and next thing you know, uh, the windows got real dark, and it just sounded like, they always tell you when the tornado comes, it sounds like a choo choo train, but this sounded more like a tractor trailer. And so I cracked a few of the windows because that's like the first thing you need to do, or the glass will blow out. So once you start cracking a couple windows, man, it's just whistling through there. And then you got to find a radio that you can play real loud, because you might have to run and hide somewhere. And the access to the basement of the house, which was turned into a downstairs, um, was no longer accessible. They had blocked that off, so I would have to go to the outside of the house to get down there. And so I had called her daddy, Georgie. He was working up in Memphis, and at Sears, and I said, I don't know what's going on. And he goes, tornado. And I said, tornado? And I went to the back door. He's like, get out of the house, get the baby, jump in the car. And I'm like, and I go to the back door, I've got the baby in my arm, can't open the door. It keeps slamming shut. And then I'm looking out the window, and I'm seeing this giant pecan tree I have in the backyard that's like the size of 6 people hugging, really big tree. Been there like 100 years, and it was swaying a little bit. And I'm like, surely not. And then I had, like 6 cars back then. I saw one of my Cadillacs get picked up, moved over about 4 feet. And I said, I can't get out. I can't get out. I was on the cordless phone, which is not altogether a good idea either, to be on a phone during a storm. But it just went black. All the windows went black. And it was just the strangest thing. It was middle of the day, beautiful sunshiny day. So anyway, I didn't know which way to go. I mean, it's a 200-year-old house, really tall ceilings, and they always tell you, well, jump in a bathtub and cover yourself with a mattress, and like we didn't have time for all that. And all the fitted bathtubs that are cast iron and porcelain, they were all, in the upstairs and the downstairs and the back house. And the main floor had a walk-in shower. So I'm trying to figure out what to do, and I had brought a bunch of fabric um, to the house so I could sew when I, wasn't in Memphis and that, and I had it in the hefty bags, and I was setting shelves up in this big cedar closet. It was on the main floor, and so it had a big deadbolt on it and all that. The lady that had the house before, I don't know, she kept her valuables there. Who knows? But it was a pretty big closet, and it was kind of in the center of the house next to the stairwell. As I was like, I'm running around the house going, there's nowhere to go. There's nowhere to go. I mean, and so I just grabbed the baby and the cordless and, cranked up the radio real loud and, had a few of the windows cracked, and I just dove in there with the baby in all these hefty bags of fabric. And, man, I just didn't know what to do. And so after about 5 minutes, when all the noise stopped and everything, I thought, well, maybe, we could come out of this closet. And because you never know. I mean, that when the wind gets still is when it's scary. And it's not when it's just like whipping around and all that stuff. I mean, this happened when the wind was still, beautiful sunshiny day. So if you're ever in a tornado area or tornado weather, when it gets still is the scary part. So anyway, finally we kind of come out of the closet there, and I was like, what the heck? And I could then see through the windows. It was really strange. It was just like, it just turned like really gray where you couldn't see through the windows when this happened. It was really strange. And so walked towards the back of the house, which I have a really big long kitchen and, several parlors on the main floor, and looked out the back door, and I saw how, my one caddy had been moved, my navy cat. And so the pecan tree was still standing, and the yard had a lot of stuff in it, like trash, branches and trash and parts of roofs and stuff. And it was weird. And there was 5 houses that were hit that day, and mine was like the only one left standing, kind of. um, and so, I had the baby, and we walked outside, and my driveway's just trashed. There is so much trash in my driveway. There's like roofing from somebody else's house because it was an entirely different color. Um, uh, there were branches everywhere. There was all kinds of weird garbage that was thrown around into my yard. And then I got out to the street, look up and down the street, and oh my gosh, it was just trashy. There were big trees that had collapsed in the street, and it was really a mess. And so I then proceeded to start cleaning up the driveway uh, as much as I could because I didn't want to run over any nails or anything. And, then I could go and see if I could, check on friends and see if they needed help or anything. And because I always have tools like chainsaws and all that stuff. So anyway, back then you knew everybody on every street, and every neighbor, every house, you knew everybody. So um, anyway, so I got the driveway clear and got in the car, And I called Georgie back and told him, man, there's just more trash in my yard from everybody's houses. I mean, there was like a bunch of roof in my yard that wasn't mine. Hey, hey, thanks for the thumbs up. And so, uh, uh, went to try to drive around the neighborhood, which was tough. Got two thumbs up, yay, yay. And so what's going on, inspiration? I'm like, hey, Roxanne, what's up? And we drove around the neighborhood and went to check on friends and help some friends and stuff, and brought a neighbor a chainsaw so he could straighten out his property. It was Miss Stagg's house, and her husband. They were kind of poor, but they used to babysit for me a lot, and so I brought them a chainsaw so they could clean up their yard. And then he went to go help some other people with their yards and charged them for it, just pennies on the dollar, because he's a good-hearted Christian kind of guy. And so it helped them make a little bit of money too. And I went down the other side of town to check on Doc Berry and my wonderful chiropractor of many years. And uh, yeah, I guess I am. I'm still here. And it was pretty bad. Tornadoes can really, really tear stuff up. And no, my car's not okay. It needs valve cover gaskets right now and some tires, but I just don't have the time or the money right now. But and I really need valve cover gaskets bad. But so I um uh went to go check on everybody, and then I had to call the insurance company because apparently what had happened was when I went upstairs to check the rest of the house, the tornado had coned over the house and lifted the upper level off and dropped it back down. But it didn't drop it back down where it belonged. It was about a foot and a half off. And that was really bad. And the insurance company just took forever to even come out. And they were just idiots. And like my dad said, when I originally bought that property and I went to insure it. And I had called him and said, what kind of insurance do I need on this house? What's the best thing to do? And he's like, insurance doesn't pay. He said, it's a scam. And I'm telling you, it just doesn't pay. And the house is just too old. And I'm like, no way. Well, I had the same insurance. The lady that passed away that was in her 80s, the lady that owned it, I had the same insurance that she had, which actually my cousin, George James, had sold it to her at her front door when he was a teenager. Um, And so, that was part of my contract agreement when I purchased the house was I was to furnish, um, you know, goods insurance, good soluble insurance company and so forth and so on. And that, it was to pay off the note if there's any debt. Now that when the house got hit, I owed 1,500 on the house. That's all I owed. And so, um, and it was the biggest house in the town. There was no house bigger than mine. And it was down in the city, and it had a commercial residential permitting on it too, so I could do anything I wanted with it. And when I did buy the house, knowing it was 200 years old and all that, I had started the renovations on it and everything, and myself. And um, I even went through some companies that I hired that were bull crap. One was a plumber that stole from me bad. And I started just doing a lot of my own work. And so the house was nearly finished. The back house was three-quarters renovated, complete top to bottom. I had just got done putting decking on and heavy-duty tar paper and shingling that and myself, and was working on the windows, doing the glazing and stuff. And so, I had really gone a long way, and I had bucketfuls of money that I just poured into this property all the time. I didn't put it in the bank, I put it in the property. Insurance company never paid. They come off with this crap. Well, it's old. I'm like, I heard this once before. And so I was pretty pissed because the house had never had a huge payoff on it, even with the previous owner. And so I got screwed. And what was really bad was the insurance company went out of business the next day. I caught the guy in the parking lot that owned the insurance company in his red Cadillac as he was grabbing some things out of the office and escaping in his car. And I'm like, hey, what's the deal? Where's the appraiser? What's going on? And he's like, oh, we'll get to you. Yeah, it was bullcrap. So, and then the company restarted 6 months later. I was pissed. They never paid, and I paid them by the year. I did not pay them by the month. I paid them by the year. I had money. And so that was pretty bad. I'm like, you could at least pay for the shingles, and stuff. Because for that house, it was so big that it needed custom scaffolds and stuff. You couldn't rent any that big. And so you had to build your own. And so that company had been in business for years and years and years. That company had been in business about 100 years. And so anyway, it was pretty bad. I did purchase the house with my other daughter when she was um, uh, like 7 years old, and she actually signed the contracts with the house for the purchase. That because my health was so bad back then, I was really worried I was to stop walking in 5 years. And so I was already building ramps to the house and all that, and then she got real sick. And so, I had called her and I said, look, you know, um, she was not living with me at the time. And I said, look, what do you want to do about the house? Do you want me to put it back together because the insurance company is not going to pay? Um, or should I just scrap it? Because I had a guy in Louisiana that wanted all the wood out of the house. And so, and they had another guy that wanted all the brick and, all that kind of thing. And so it would not be a problem just to scrap it all out, or try to get the fire department to demo test it. But the fire department wouldn't do that. I had contacted him about that, said, just use it for practice, and let's burn it to the ground so, I can clear the land because I had commercial zoning and residential, so I could do anything I wanted. I could put storages up there. I could put townhouses up there. I could do whatever I wanted to do. I could put a mobile home up there, an RV up there while I'm building. It didn't make a difference. I checked all this out before I purchased the property. The land alone was worth 27K just for the dirt, which was good money back then. And so I wasn't worried when I bought the property. It had two houses on it and 15-car driveway and a huge granddaddy porch, and it was really big. So, and the insurance was really cheap because I was like, 2 blocks from the police department and like 3 blocks from the fire department and all that kind of stuff. Plus, it was a prime location because it was near schools and all that stuff. And it was a lot of walkability to, things around the town that were important. If you needed to go to the market or any of that, it was just there. So, anyway, they never paid, and she said she didn't want the house. And I was like, oh. So I was very unhappy in that town. My daughter had got really sick, and things just got really bad. And it was like I wished I could have picked the house up and moved it somewhere else, but that would not even be possible, especially in the condition it was after the tornado hit it. It rained in the house. It was pretty bad. I had to put the baby and George in a hotel and a casino for like 4 months. I had comps, so I didn't pay crap for it. And I would go back and forth and haul stuff out of the house and sell stuff in the yard and like stoves and things. And I had to wash stuff. I had huge ceilings, so I had big long curtains and lots of windows, and all this stuff was soaking wet. And I'm going upstairs and wiring the house together at the top, with big eyes into the 2x4s and wire and cranking that wire up so I could tighten it because the walls were pulling out. And it was just horrible. It got to the point where, now couldn't run electric in the house any longer. It was just really in bad, bad, bad shape. And it was so sad. It was like the house had gone back to what it was before. There was electric and all those things. It was really strange, you know. I'm like running the house on candles and oil lamps and stuff, going in there, moving stuff, packing it, taking it to storages. I had multitudes of storages. I had just bought two pianos, two Chicago uprights, and I had them down at Doc Berry's shop down in Helena. And I was just getting ready to move those pianos in. I was going to put one in the back house and one in the main house. And those pianos never made it into the house, and they sat in his shop for years and got rained on and everything else. It was so sad. I'm not going to believe what you saw. Did you see a tornado today? But yeah, so it was just amazing. 15 rooms in the main house, and I have one bedroom, one story in the back, and it's a 200-year-old house. And it was built, um, designed and built by barn framing, is what they call it. And what they do is they decide how big they want the house, and they build the walls on the ground, and then they lift them up. And then the last thing that goes on is the roof. And so it was really built nicely. I mean, up in the top level at the roof, which was a whole nother level, which I wanted to put a pool table up there and a choo-choo train that went up around the ceiling in a big circle. Um, Never got that room finished, but I'd been up there many a time, and it was amazing how wonderful the wood was up there. But because the tornado had lifted the top of it off, claiming to be selling a worn Liberace suit. Well, they might have. His costume maker was ancient, and he did tons of work for him, and it might have been a relative of the costume maker he had selling stuff off, because it might have gone in for repair, and they had it all those years, and it would be worth quite a bit. They had a Liberace auction just not long ago, and sold a lot of his stuff off, and the house is already sold, and the restaurant closed, and the museum closed, but the house is already sold. As a matter of fact, the guy that bought that house is storing some of the Liberace cars over there, because they, for some reason, they'd filled the pool in and made a big garage over there. And that best part of that house was the pool. That one house that he had like four of them, but the one down there in Palm Springs, I think it is. Yeah. And what a neat place. But yeah, so it was really a bummer, man. The flipping insurance company didn't pay, and then I called Mr. Bennett. This guy used to do tear downs on houses and stuff, and had him come over. I knew him for years. He used to be the maintenance guy up at a college that I went to, college for engineering, and he was supposed to come and, thank you for the thumbs up, you guys. He was supposed to come and give me an idea of what it's going to take and everything, to break the house down, because the fire department wouldn't use it for demo practice, and they said it was too close to the neighboring house. And I'm like, no, it's not, man. I got the biggest house in town, and it's far enough away. And they're like, no, it's not. So they wouldn't do it. But anyway, and I had a guy in Louisiana that was building. He bought a whole bunch of property down in Louisiana, and he was building a RV park with only those big silver antique damn, like I Love Lucy trailers. Um, uh, they're like all aluminum, and they're just antique looking. They still make them today, and they still look old. And he wanted to make a big giant trailer park of only those trailers that people could come and trailer park there, vacation, whatever. And that was his dream. But yeah, and so he wanted the wood really bad. And but nothing really quite came through. All I did was keep buying storages and keep washing stuff and selling stuff off and moving stuff out, and some stuff I couldn't get out. My cousin George and I were in the house one day, and and the house had a fireplace, and on the main floor, and which the main floor was above ground. This was an interesting house, so you could see anything coming in the driveway, any of that. The main level was above ground. So anyway, uh, we tried I was offered $5,000 for the mantle, the fireplace mantle. It's filigree wood. It was all hand carved, and that's when I bought the house. I had two different people that wanted that fireplace mantle, and so um, I wouldn't sell it, and because it came with the house, it was part of the house, and so I wanted to take it with me, and I looked at that. I saw the suit in the picture. Yeah. And so uh um we were in there, and the house is sagging so bad because it's been raining in it for 3 months. Okay. And so I mean, it's an all wood house. So anyway, we're in the front parlor, the two parlor on that floor. And we're in there, and I'm like, look, all I want to do is like get this mantle off of here. And I started unbolting it, but I need some help. And so we're in there trying to get this mantle off, and we get it almost off, and bad noises are coming. And we were about ready to run out of the house. Because I was like, man, I hope if we pull this mantle off that the whole house doesn't come down. So we didn't get the mantle because it was too scary. And we about had it off the wall. And so I was like, man, it's not worth dying over. You know what I mean? So anyway, and that mantle would be worth a huge amount of money. I had some people years later that wanted that mantle, but that wasn't happening. But yeah, it was just all the porcelain footed bathtubs. I had let's see, one, two, three, four bathrooms total. Yeah, four bathrooms total. And I had three porcelain footed baths. So, is this the house that eventually caught on fire? How do you know that? How do you know that? But anyway, the house, it was so sad. I told you that before? Okay. Because I swear my neighbor did it. He used to, when I was renovating the house, my drunk neighbor, who used to be a state trooper, he used to tell me, shit, I will take a goddamn Coke bottle and let a damn firebomb out of it and throw it in that sucker and let it burn to the ground, collect the insurance on it. I'm like, no. I had so much money in the property. As a matter of fact, they were stealing my shingles and stuff that were around the back of the house. Recommend one of your old vlogs fixing a mirror, and I had a mirror like that. Yeah, well, I did that. I did that mirror in a rental property, and the landlord was thrilled to bits. Yeah, oh, my neighbor, that stupid drunk, he freaking, uh, every time I would come in town to work on the house, um, I would come in about once a month to cut the yards and everything because I was still claiming with the city as it being uh an independent property or whatever, so they don't charge you big taxes on it. And so it only worked for like 2 years or something, and then they finally said no, we're all done. Because they ended up having to take the wires off the house and stuff like that. It was in bad shape. And so anyway, uh it was really sad. My daughter and I were out there just recently, and it's like there's nothing there. Most of my fences were stolen. They were all Sears fences. It was $3,000 in fences. and just everybody just stole and stole. And there was some of the marble still left in the front courtyard, um, uh, and oddly enough, a lot of my edge brick is still there. I couldn't believe it. We found one of the graves of one of our dogs that were there because I put marble on the graves of the dogs, and um, yeah, remarkable. And so, yeah, that people kept breaking in the house and spray painting the inside of the house. And I know of two people that were doing that. I had video inside and out of the house because I had a stalker forever. But I don't have a doubt in my mind that that Joker set that house on fire because I heard that it was on fire. When we went back, we went around town trying to ask questions of people and everything, and people didn't even remember the house being there. It was like, the house was biggest in town. It was right there, and they're like, not since I've been living here. And it's like, okay. So I think there was a huge transition of people. Now, that town got very black, which that town was ultra white type of neighborhood. There was only one sector, a very small sector, in a very bad part of town that was black. And then the other side of the town in the Twin Cities was predominantly black. Now, I lived in both sides of those towns, and never really had any problems, because I love everybody. And so, but everything had changed there. I mean, just everything. And all the city officials are all black now and everything. And it's really funny because my ex, who was CPA and city treasurer there for some time, was very Civil War Southern, and he just don't even he doesn't even think that black people are a race. He thinks they're creatures, and he tried to instill that in my daughter. And I said, "Don't do it. Do not do that." I was raised in California, and we just love everybody until they do us dirty, and that's it. I said, but do not teach my small child nasty things, you know, to be judging people and stuff. So it was really kind of funny. It cracked me up when the whole city was taken over by blacks. The judge, everything, cops, everything went black. And I thought that was hilarious because, it was like, well, he got his just desserts because, that was his favorite town. He like kind of grew up there other than Mississippi. And what's really funny is he grew up in a poor part of Mississippi where it was predominantly black. And so, a lot of his friends were black. So it didn't make any sense to me how he talked so derogatory about another race that he like grew up around. I mean, it's like, why? So anyway, I thought that was pretty funny when I went back and everything was black. All the people that ran Walmart were black, all the cops were black, all the city was black, the judges were black, the DAs were black, everybody's black. It's like, oh, I bet this was good. uh, to me, it's like, well, if you don't like it, don't hang around. So anyway, and actually, I think he has moved away from that town. I think he moved to back to Mississippi. But anyway, so which is just over the bridge. But so yeah, that was pretty bad. That was so sad. And then the next time I got direct hit by a tornado was at my shop in Dothan, Alabama. And my daughter was now 3 years old. I'd say about three. And we were in the house and there was lightning striking outside of the house. We were in a big giant trailer house. I mean, a huge one. This thing was huge. It was one, two, three bedrooms and a huge parlor and a huge kitchen. It was really big. It was one of those, what do you call them, triple widers. And I'm not a big fan of trailers at all, but it was 600, 550 a month for that place, which was kind of big rent there. But it was big and it had front yard, backyard, and all that. So, but and I had a couple neighbors that are pretty decent there. Now that place is toilet bowl trash. really bad, bad place to live. But anyway, we were, I had a big front window, octagon glass window, and all of a sudden this lightning bolt struck, and me and Boob just jumped, and we like flew over onto the couch, and which was over by the fireplace, and so I was like, "Whoa, I don't know what that is," but I mean, it lit up the whole front window like a fireball, like the sun had just dropped in the yard. I can't believe that. It would have been bad, yeah. And so that was really, really frightening. And next thing you know, it's blowing away and things are flying. And we're like peeking over the couch like something out of a movie. And um she was on me like glue. And it was like so scary because we'd already been in one tornado when she was 4 weeks old. Now here's another one. And the worst thing you want to be in is a flipping trailer house in a tornado, okay? And don't think you always get warnings or sirens and all because you don't. There was no siren for that. There was no siren for the one at the big house. And I don't even know if they had sirens over there then. But so at the big house. But anyway, um so I was like, if you ask me, it's a tornado. And yeah. And so anyway, we just, like, we're on the couch hiding and like peeking over it a little bit. And I said, just be careful. I said, because, whatever it is, it might blow that window out. And so, anyway, because we were about probably 30 foot from that window, um, and I always kept curtains open. I like, to see outside and stuff all the time. I'm not a big curtain person. I like shears, but, solid curtains. I like to be able to see outside and stuff. And so anyway, uh, that was really bad. And what had happened was for that tornado, it hit. Let's see, how did it go? It hit uh the tree, and then it 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 bounced off the tree onto the navy bell on the front door that it put on a brass bell. And then it went from the bell and it hit straight down through the porch floor and then bounced back and hit the car and flattened every single tire. And we watched the car right after the hit. We were standing there, my neighbor was standing out there too. And it was like some out of a movie. The flipping car, all four tires were like and like flattening. I'm like, God, did the lightning hit it? Is it melting the tires? And then the car starts smoking, and I had all my run stock in there in rolling bags, and it was like, oh, will I get electrocuted if I go up and open the door handles? Because I need to pull this stuff out of the car before it blows up. So I had a full tank of gas in it, and I was afraid it was going to blow up. And my neighbor's like, no, it'll probably be okay. And I'm like, grabbed a towel and went out there and opened the door and started dragging everything out in the yard because I had $400,000 worth of retail stock in the car. My run stock and from working at clubs. And so, yeah, so it was pretty incredible. And so got the stuff out and we just stood there and watched the car smoke. And it was so pitiful. Don't ever park your car next to some metal or a tree during a tornado or a storm because they'll get hit. I had a friend of mine that hers got hit parked by the basketball net at her parents' house in the driveway, and the lightning hit the net, hit her car, and electrocuted it. This car, it ran kind of, but it was mad. And the tires were all brand new. And I had the Walmart guarantee on them. So what I did was I took each tire off independently and took it down to Walmart with my warranty, and they replaced them. Because they measure the tread wear, and there was no wear because they're brand new. So it was like $400 or $500 in tires. So I got all the tires replaced, but the car ran, but it didn't run good. It sucked. It wanted to die and stuff. And So it hit something in electronics. It electrocuted it somewhere. So anyway, my babysitters wanted the car, and they traded me for like $400 worth of babysitting. And we used to do trades all the time. They're like, "Oh, I want it." And I'm like, "Well, I mean, I'll sell it to you for what the tires are, because the tires are brand new." I said, "Because I don't know if the car is worth crap, you know." And so anyway, they took it. They worked on it for 6 months or a year. They were so happy to get that car, but it was just amazing. Let's see. Well, I don't remember when, but we had bad rains so fast that I thought I was going to take the walls off. Never heard wind that fast. Oh yeah, oh yeah. Let me tell you, tornadoes not fun. I was driving to through Tunica to Memphis one day in my '77 Camaro, and it had the fin on the back. And all of a sudden, um, uh, my car is like going 65 miles an hour all of a sudden from like 50. And I took my foot off the gas pedal and it's still going. And I'm like, man, I was in the middle of another tornado and it was pushing me. And yeah, they always tell you, oh, well, just if you're in a car, just jump out into a ditch and lay down in a ditch. And it's like, you've lost your mind. You know, you have lost your mind. Um, but yeah, it's tornadoes really bad. Now, here's the thing with trailer houses. The trailer houses are not approved past 45 miles per hour. Okay, they say they're not safe after the wind is 45 miles an hour. Do you know that they tow them on the expressway like 65 miles an hour? Yeah, when they're transporting them to set them up, they're like 65 miles an hour. So you explain that to me. You know what I mean? Um, but they just, I mean, they're just cracker boxes. Florida ones are built really well. You can't bring like an Alabama trailer to Florida. It's against the law because they're not built to Florida standards. But now you can take a Florida trailer to Alabama. You just can't bring an Alabama rated trailer to Florida because they won't tolerate it. Um, and hell, we tried to buy a house when Boop was um, a little over a month old after the house got hit. We tried to buy a house down here on Georgie's military. Um, and we when we went to the bank at Eglin and talked to them, and they said, well, first of all, we have certain rules about house purchasing. I was like, okay. And so they were like, we won't finance any house unless it has a metal roof on it. And back then, hardly any houses had metal roofs on them. So that means whatever house you got, you needed to put a roof on it or you needed to buy it with it because they didn't want to finance it. So that was another problem. It was really expensive to put metal roofs on back then. But they have a lot of requirements in Florida, of what the insurance will cover and what it won't. And I don't know why they would even cover a trailer house because most of the hurricanes and serious damage in mid Florida going down towards Miami and all that is all like it was trailer houses, a lot of it. And I mean, those just don't survive. They just don't survive through tornadoes. They're just not. I don't care how you tie them down and pin them down and whatever you do, they're just not made for all that. They always tell you, run to the neighbor's house that's brick, you know. Don't be in your trailer house. But now when I was in Oklahoma, my Aunt Roseanne had given me keys, to the abstract company even after I left working there. And she said, if there's ever a tornado, just drive over here and go get in the safe because it used to be a big bank building. And I was like, oh, really? I'm like, are we going to be able to get out? And she goes, oh, yeah, it's got a thing on the other side. So they can't build them like that anymore where you can't get out. I'm like, oh, okay. She's like, just grab the baby and just go down there and just get in the safe. So I was telling my friends who've lived there for a million years, I said, well, I got the key to the abstract place and I'll just go down there. And they're like, yeah, if you get time to do that. And they're like, they come in a split second. I'm like, huh? And, from California to Oklahoma, and California we have earthquakes. They last 5 seconds, 30 seconds, big wow. And houses don't dance down the street and all that stuff. I don't care what anybody's told you. It's bull crap. I grew up around it. It's not a big hairy deal. And so anyway, I've lived in San Francisco where the fault is there and all that. I've been there, done that. Earthquake is nothing compared to tornado. Tornado is serious Dorothy of the Wizard of Oz stuff. You better have your red glitter shoes on. That's some serious, serious stuff. I've seen some very horrible tornado damage. And I think some of the worst tornado damage I've ever seen was in Tennessee. And there's a road in Tennessee leaving from Nashville going to Huntsville, Alabama, and they call it like Tornado Alley because the sucker gets hit and wiped out to the ground like every couple of years. And it's like, why do people live there? Um, but it only take once to scare me off. You know what I mean? Flatten my house, I'm out of there. But yeah, so um, uh, you know, my friends that lived in Oklahoma for a great many years. He says, look, if you even had the time to drive down to the abstract office, which is like a mile, uh, and he said, in a tornado they just come. And he says, in hell, he says, let me tell you, that safe isn't any more safer than anywhere else because, you know, tornado pick up that safe and twist it up like a Coke can. I'm like, oh, geez, this is terrible. But then, you would see these guys, like, I was living in this really nice place at Wilkerson's right before I moved from there. Beautiful place, real nice complex. And it was the most expensive place in town. I said before I left it, I said, I'm going to move to the most expensive place in town. You'll see. And I did, in like less than a year, I had moved over there. And so, anyway, I had gone outside and the sky was kind of dark over on one side. And these two guys are standing out there drinking beer and these country dudes. And I walked up and I said, what you looking at? And they said, that tornado over there. And I'm like, huh? And they're like, yep, that's a tornado. And they're standing there drinking beer. I'm thinking, man, we got to run, you know? And so I remember when Atlanta had a tornado. Shoot, there's tornadoes all the time. And all the time. And they just got one in the last 24 hours. It's wiped out a ton of NOLA and hit Mississippi too. Um, but yeah, so but hell, in Louisiana they have like flipping like 10 serious ripping storms a year. But and like every year. And so I was like blown away. I'm like, oh my God, these guys are just standing there drinking beers, casually watching the darkness in the sky. And like, I want to run. I want to run and hide. And then they tell you, okay, this is what you do. You go into a bathroom and you get in the bathtub and you cover yourself with like a bed mattress. So if you're good enough to drag a whole bed mattress into the bathroom, and well, Louisiana floods because it's under the water line. It's always been, and it's just one of those places that's underwater, and it's going to flood. It's just really bad selection of land, as well as Florida. Florida's swampland. It always has been, always will be. It's just swampland. But Louisiana's under the water line. But anyway, so especially down in the corridor, they had no business building down there. It's really bad. But anyway, so um uh uh you're supposed to go in the bathroom and drag a mattress over you and then crack your windows and turn the radio real high. Supposed to have a battery operated radio in case of emergency. And or the TV, you turn the TV on full blast, but usually in storms like that, it wipes out the power, so you really need something with battery. So it's like, how am I supposed to do all this stuff? And then what sense does it make to be in the bathtub, okay, which is water, with electric, all your lighting and everything else? So if the place gets desecrated, are you going to be in a bathtub with water draining in it and electric lines over the top of you? Really? I mean, I don't get that part. To me, it sounds like electrocution. But yeah, tornadoes are very unpredictable. Like I say, the day that it hit my big house, it was a beautiful sunshiny day, and there wasn't even any wind, and it was that fast. No warning, no nothing. The windows just turned gray, couldn't see out of them, and it sounded like a tractor trailer. If you ever go to a truck stop, you hear the tractor trailers, humming. That's what it sounded like. When everybody else says, "Oh, it sounds like a choo-choo train," well, it didn't sound like it to me. It sounded like tractor trailer. But yeah, and the wind just will stop. It'll just be nothing, and then all of a sudden, it just starts screaming, and stuff flies. It's just like being in the Wizard of Oz. Stuff just flies. It could be cars, it could be houses, it could be anything. And it's really scary. It is really, really, really scary. And what's really scary is after. When you start driving the streets, and, checking on people or checking on damage, and the horrendous damage where you see trees that have gone through houses, and trees that have gone over cars, and cars that have been thrown down the streets. And I went down when I had what was it, Hurricane Katrina, where it blew all the showboats up onto the highway, the gambling showboats and stuff. Blew them up on the highway. The President Casino, Treasure Bay, and one other one that blew up on the highway. And I went down 3 trips, and I went to Dollar Tree, and I had a van, was one of my cars at that time. I had a black van. And I filled it up with um, baby stuff, toilet paper, paper towels, bottled water, all kinds of stuff. And would drive down there myself and my chainsaw, and drive down there and go and just go to people's houses and say, "Can I help?" You know, and we'd go out there and be whacking on trees and stuff. So a lot of these older people could get in and out of their houses and out of the yard, or get the car out of the driveway and stuff. And then I was giving all this stuff away to people that, I mean, were homeless. So much of it flooded down there, and there was just people with children and stuff. And I made 3 trips, and it was all my money. All I was making really, really good money. And it was all my money, and I was going back and forth 3 times. I went down there, and I put my daughter in the sitter, and I would drive down there, and just to go help people, and I just stay in the car, you know, and it was just amazing. It was amazing, but I was glad I could help people, um, because that's what it's all about, is helping others. I wish somebody would have really helped me with my house. When the insurance company failed me, I had all that money in that property. It was just unreal, the money I had poured into that property. But I bought it and rebuilt it for my daughter. It was for her, so she'd have it. It was going to be the last house I swung a hammer on. I said, no more renovating old houses. This one, I own it, and that's it. It's the last one I'm going to swing a hammer on. And so that way she would have her own house for life. And it's a shame that it came to that, and she didn't want it, and I had the money to renovate it without the insurance company, and she just absolutely didn't want it. And I said, okay, well, so I was just trying to get everything out of it, which I didn't get everything out of the house. People kept breaking in every time I come back down, and I'd come down to do the hedges and stuff. I paid the guy across the street to cut the yards every month, and pay him cash, and because he lived right across the street, and but they just kept terrorizing that poor house, and then actually it went up for auction 2 years ago. That property, all these years later, went up for auction. Yeah. And so that was kind of weird, but it's a shame I don't have it today. It would be worth a little bit more than what I actually had visualized it to be back then, just the dirt alone. But um, it's just I wouldn't move back there. I don't think, you know. Um, it's not the town it used to be. A lot of the restaurants are gone. There's no real places to eat. Used to have some great mom and pop restaurants there and some fine dining there, and there was a lot there once upon a time, and all that's gone, and it's just not the quaint, lovely by the Mississippi River place anymore. And Memphis is worthless. It's just Memphis is dangerous. So, and there's no money option there. I've made a lot of money in Memphis for a great many years. So, it's kind of back there in the history books. But yeah, tornadoes are scary. They're not fun. They're not fun. I've been in direct hit 2 times. 2 times. So, it's a rough way to go. It's really scary. Once you've been in direct hit one tornado, it'll scare the heebie-jeebies out of you every time a tornado gets near you. You just start like acting like a cat. You'll be going, uh-oh, I got to go. Uh-oh, I got to go. And then when you get in direct hit 2 times, you're really freaking out over it. Isn't Memphis the home of country music? I don't know. I don't know. I'm not from Memphis. I'm European, so I was raised in California, so I don't know. All I know is it was made of money. I made truckloads of money there. Truckloads. For years. Yes, for years. I had 3 retail shops there. I made a lot of money in Memphis. Truckloads. Yep. Yep. And as a matter of fact, when I bought my big house, I didn't have a dollar in my pocket. And no bank would finance me because I was a single parent. That's right. Yeah. And then, like 2 weeks later, I had $22,000. Were you born here? No. Why? but but yeah. So I've been all over the states, and I've been to parts of Europe. A lot of country stuff. Always wanted to visit Graceland. Okay, let me tell you about Graceland. All that Elvis stuff is horse crap, for one. And I mean, I have friends that just think Elvis is it, and just. I was over Elvis when I was a kid because my best friend Pam Creech, she was Tigger 1 and I was Tigger 2, and uh, she used to play Elvis when I used to go slumber party at her house a lot. Um, she would play Elvis on the stereo all freaking night long when we were trying to sleep. I was so tired of Elvis. And if it wasn't Elvis, it was Charlie Rich. But she was really into Elvis. And I listened to recorded Memphis. So, well, that's where you were supposed to go, was to Memphis to record, to be famous. That's where everybody went. But, but yeah, so, uh, unless you were in downtown LA, like a Decca or something. But yeah, um, uh, I hate I couldn't stand Elvis. It didn't do crap for me. Even years later, I've done Elvis costumes for Elvis impersonators, and the clothes are fun, but I don't give a damn about that Elvis. They're like, I'll get you in there free, man. For you do this costume, and I'll pay you too. And do it. And it's like, I don't care. I just don't care. Um, there's only a very little bit of Elvis stuff that I ever even thought to appreciate that I saw in some videos where he was doing some like jambalaya music stuff on guitar, which is like old black music that he started with. It's not all that other stuff. And but I hated it. I couldn't stand it because I heard it so many times. I hated it. So everybody used to go, "Oh, Elvis," and I'm like, "Oh, shut up." Um, so doesn't thrill me. But I will tell you that that bad guy that I was engaged to, that I left in Memphis, who is dead now. He I found on the internet he died, I guess, a couple years ago, and then somebody else confirmed that he really did die. Um, because you can't never believe what you see. But anyway, so he was way off into Elvis, and he when he got drunk, he would be going, "Oh, I'm Elvis's brother," and da 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 da, and he carry on and on and on and on. And it's like, I don't even care. And so we went to go to Graceland one time to take my daughter out there, you know, because he just talked about all these great things about Memphis and all this crap. And he used to be Memphis sheriff. So I said, well, great. Well, then let's go, see Graceland and go check that out. And since we're here, it's supposed to be a big tourist thing. So we went out there, and the first thing is there's like 10 fake Elvises. And they walk right up in your face trying to be singing to you, and they don't even look like Elvis. They don't even sound like Elvis. They suck. They're like bad bozos, you know. So that didn't impress me. And then um, they had the Lisa Marie airplane thing in the parking lot there, which was not that big of a plane. And it was old and decrepit. And all you could do was walk up the steps and look in this little window and just see only a little bit of it. And that's all you got to do. They didn't even allow people to go in that plane. I said, well, that's kind of a dud. And it was raggedy looking. And then, I mean, I was not impressed with all this so-called money. Why didn't they maintain all this? And I thought when he died that his daughter ended up with everything, and nobody's maintaining the crap. And so then they had this museum, so-called museum gift store thing, which all this stuff's across the street from the so-called Elvis mansion, which is not a freaking mansion. It's a little house. And so anyway, we went in the gift shop thing, and that was no great shakes. Everything was way overpriced, and it was just Elvis, Elvis, Elvis everywhere. And it didn't throw me a bit. I mean, a little tiny gift shop. And so then we found out that the story was that if you wanted to get the tour for the house, you had to buy the tickets in advance, and you couldn't just like walk over there and all that stuff. And it was a big to do. And then it turns out you don't even get to see but like 1/4 of the house in the tour. And then I met some people years later that live just on the back side of that house. And they said, it's a bullcrap tour. They said, like, we've been to it. And I'm like, what? And it's, yeah, you only get to see like 1/4 of the house. They've got everything blocked off so you can't go see all that stuff. And so, I mean, if that's your gig and you want to go do it, go ahead, go pay a bunch of money and don't even get to see but some stuff there that's probably not even existent from the day that he was alive. It's probably been changed 15 times over. Um, so you have to remember his parents were still alive when he died. Okay, so his dad had like total control, you know. So, but no, it's a bullshit tourist attraction. And then the house that he grew up in Tunica, I mean out in Tupelo, I've been by that too, and that's a freaking shack. It's a little tiny shack. It isn't nothing. And there's nothing historical to see about that. It's just an old Mississippi shack. His family was dirt poor. And my engineering teacher, Brian W. Cunningham, if he's still alive, um, coached Elvis on the football team at Memphis. That's right. Yes, sir. And the story he tells is that he said Elvis was a really fine young man. And he wasn't into all that fame, fortune, whatever. He was a fine man. And he said he had one pair of jeans, and the jeans would get more and more patches of it, because his mother would hand sew patches on his jeans when he'd get a hole in them, and so he had real patchworky looking jeans because they couldn't afford new jeans, and his mom just kept sewing patches on him. But he said he was a really nice kid, and he was great on the football team, and He was just a regular kind of guy. I've driven by that shack several times in Tupelo, and my teacher said it's not even totally the original shack. They kind of dolled it up for tourist attraction. But this sucker is like, you know, it's like 10 by 10. It's a shack. But and the Elvis mansion is not a big mansion. It's just a freaking little house. Now he had a really nice house. Um, I think it was in Palm Springs at one point. He had a really nice house down there that he had for a little while, and then I don't know what's happened with that since. I think Dean Martin bought that house for somebody. Um, but but yeah, no. I mean, if you want to go see the Elvis Mansion, go for it. You're gonna pay what, $125 some crap, and you have to make reservations, and you're gonna have to get a hotel, and it's in the dirtiest part of Memphis almost. There's only part that's dirtier than that is Brooks Road, and um uh there's shootings and everything else out there. Memphis is very bad now, very very bad. They have gangs out there and stuff now, and yeah. Hell, I broke down on Brooks Road one night at work. God, was that scary? My white Cadillac. Oh, that was scary. But I don't know how I made it through that evening, boy. But to daylight, yeah. But no, I mean, it's a bullcrap deal, man. It's not. I wouldn't waste the money. I wouldn't waste the breath. I would watch a bunch of YouTube videos or something, or read books about it before I would go pay that money and go do that tour, because we were right there and wanted to go, and it was a big horse crap deal. They're like, oh, you have to do the tours at certain times and certain days, and it's this much money, and da da. And then when I found out from everybody else that you don't even get to see the whole place, you only get to see like 1/4 of it because everything's roped off, closed off, and no people allowed, and all that kind of crap. And they still maintain the house and all this junk. I don't know. I think his wife was living there, his ex-wife or something. I don't know what the story was with that, but it was just like they were only going to show part of it. So it's not worth it to me. I want to see it all or screw it. I find somebody that freaking breaks in and they'll do a video of it and show you everything. I'll watch that video. you know, but but yeah, it just I mean, it's just I have no desire. I saw an old crime show on TV and it showed drug dealers on the Elvis Presley Boulevard. But yeah, Memphis is I mean, have you never been to Memphis? I worked there for years. I know all about it. I lived there a couple times. Um, Memphis is Memphis. I mean, it's not as bad as Atlanta. Atlanta's pretty bad, but Memphis is Memphis. It is hookers and drug dealers and and black pimps and freaking you know hoods, and I mean it's you better know your crap, man. If you go to Memphis, it's not freaking Panda Delight, you know, unless you can afford to stay at a Peabody hotel, you know. And everything around Peabody Hotel is fairly safe. You can kind of walk for the next block around there and not get killed, probably. I've been Peabody Hotel several times in Memphis. Very pretty place. But um, yeah, I mean, Memphis is not. Even in Germantown, there's more theft in Germantown. That's the high end of Memphis. I lived there. Even in Germantown, that's freaking. They have more theft and problems in Germantown than they do downtown. But I mean, it's just not. It's Memphis. It's just, you know what the worst place to go is? Beale Street. It took 3 years for people to con me into going to Beale Street. I was like, I'm not going down there. Guess what? Went down there, and one of my friends was like, I'm not parking my Camaro down here. It's not happening. This is like going to downtown LA. I said, I'll come out and the freaking tires and rims are going to be gone. They'd be sitting on the ground. And I'll pay for a good parking. Paid $20 parking. I was still peeing my pants. I stayed a total of an hour. Um, Beale Street did not thrill me. Went up there at night. I said, "Oh, you got to see Beale Street. That is the thing to do in Memphis." No great shakes. The only thing that was good about Beale Street was walking into this one bar, and it had the King of the Blues was in there. He was actually in there, and he's a very old black man. He was actually in there playing a guitar right next to the bar, just screwballing around. And I even went up and said hello to him. I didn't know he was famous. and and he was really sweet. And but he owned that bar and he also entertained there. And I'm trying to think of his name. He's an old blues player. And the place is supposed to still be there all these years later, but um great guy though, really nice guy. But you see a lot of neat stuff in the Tunica area. The guy that wrote the song Walking in Memphis, all that stuff is true, every line of that song. And I knew that lady that played the piano in Tunica that he talks about in that song. She's a really sweet lady. And she just played piano in just this podunk little restaurant. Yeah, just regular person. She's just sweet as pie. And it's all real people he wrote about. So you have to have been to all those places he describes in that song to understand it. But but yeah, no, Memphis is dirty poo poo, man. It's a dangerous place. It's full of gangs right now. I got friends that live up there right now, and they're like, man, it is so bad. And I was just there like 2 years ago. I went up there to try to dress the girls up in the clubs and that, and all the clubs have changed, and it's just really scary. It is so nasty scary. And the money's not like it was. And it wasn't worth poop to me. I'm just like, I'm so done with this. I just want to go. So that's when you turn the key in the car and go, we'll head somewhere else. We'll go north, south, east, or west. So yeah. But it's no it's very dangerous now. But yeah, I mean if you want to go to Memphis, go see Elvis House, go ahead because it's a waste. It's I bet you could go on YouTube and see all kinds of stuff about Elvis House than you would ever see there. Um, because you're going to pay huge money, and I'm sure they got a website for it now and everything. It was so unprofessional back then. They were so disorganized, and they're so screwballed up. And there were suing people left and right for copying Elvis stuff and everything else. And I mean, like I say, the gift shop was not impressive. I mean, and you looked right across the street to the house, and it was just a little house. I'm like, that's it. That's this big Elvis mansion with the big gates and all this. It wasn't poop. It was not poop. So, it's not like they tell you it is. It's not. But I would suggest looking on the internet and seeing. But I bet there's a million videos of Elvis's house on YouTube if you want to see that, because that would be a better deal. You could go buy some really nice dinner and bring it home and sit there and watch the videos instead of go pay all that big money to go in that bullcrap little house. Much less stay in the hotels in Memphis, which Tunica's cheaper, but still you got a ways of a drive. But yeah, I mean, you know, I was really disappointed because I thought this would be really great. We could go see all this stuff that's real famous and say we'd been there. Sort of like going to Disneyland. I've been there. I've been to Disneyland, California a bazillion times. I can't tell you how many times I've been to Disneyland. Even after I grew up, been to Disneyland. But I've never been to the one in Florida, and I would love to go. But they say it's so grossly expensive. It's like you're talking at least $200 a person, and that's a lot of money. I can think of a lot of things I could do with $200. You know what I mean? I can buy a tire for my car for that kind of money. Yeah, but yeah, so I don't know. Have I been to Dollywood? No, and that's another retarded story. Um, that really evil man, the rich man that I almost married. He had a city meeting um out at uh Pigeon Forge and Gatlinburg, Pigeon Forge, and they reserved a big hotel for all the city people, and real nice room and everything. They paid for the whole deal, and some of our meals. And so while we were there, we toured around. And he really liked that area too, and he knew all about it, Cherokee and Pigeon Forge, Gatlinburg. So we went out there and uh um I said, hey, this is the home of, Dolly Parton land. And he goes, yeah. And I said, well, I would really like to take my daughter to that since we're in the area. Because, he's going to be in conventions all day long and all that crap. And so, and we drove up there from Germantown. So, but, so we had a car, you know. And so I said, I would really like to go do that. He's like, oh, we'll do it. We'll do it. We'll do it. Well, then when, we're trying to find out about it and people are like, oh, yeah, there's something you really got to do. Everybody asks, at any restaurant, wherever, any stranger, Dollywood, yeah. Oh, you got to do it. So it come to know that Dollywood was closed for the season. It's only open certain times. So we were up there at the wrong season. So no, we didn't get to go see Dollywood. But we did go to Gatlinburg. Now that's a place you really want to go to. If you ever have a chance in your lifetime to go to some super neat places, would be Gatlinburg, Tennessee, Cherokee, and Carmel, California. Out at Solvang and all that. That's really neat. Um, Geez, what else? Um, I'm trying to think of some really great places, and I've been all over the states. Uh, um, Tampa, Tampa, Florida. Miami's fun. I wouldn't want to live there. The storms are too strong there. I always wanted to go to Key West, but I've never been there yet. And I was only an hour from it when I bought my Cadillac over there. In Miami. Uh, um, but there's some neat place. There's a really neat place. In Upper Florida, just below Jacksonville. I'm trying to think of the name of that town. Man, is that pretty over there, right on the water. But I've been to almost every city in the state of Florida. So, almost every single city. That's right. So, I know a lot about that. But, but yeah, Gatlinburg's a super neat place to go, and hopefully you don't go in the winter like we did. It was so cold. Dear God, it was cold. But it's a really neat place to go. Matter of fact, that's where I met um the owner of a company that my daughter worked for, Fudgery Company. I met him there years and years ago in his little candy store. Have I ever been to Sun City? No, my uncle lives there, and I don't know what it was named before that because I don't remember any city in California. I've been to like every city in the state of California, from San Diego all the way to San Francisco. And I think that's something that's been renamed from something else. It's just like Artesia was renamed Los Cerritos. Why? I don't have a clue. It was Artesia was a much better name, and that's where the artesian water came from. So why would you change that name? Especially when it's not all Mexican. Los Cerritos is a Latin name. So, I mean, there were some Mexicans a little bit here and there at my that lived around my grandpa's house, and the little shacks around there, and they worked on the farms and stuff, but it wasn't like tons of Mexicans or tons of blacks or anything like that. It was just all mix them up. There was all different kinds of people there. So it wasn't predominantly Mexican or anything over in that area at all. But um but my uncle lives in Sun City. Yep. So, and he used to live in Fullerton. And I've been all over Fullerton because I have a lot of relatives on my mom's side there, out of Fullerton, Orange County, and all that stuff. So, but I grew up in California. I've been to every city. I've danced every discotheque, every dance floor in the state of California, from San Diego all the way to San Francisco, guaranteed. I promise you, no lie. Um, been there and partied in some of the finest clubs. I partied in the Bonaventure Hotel downtown when it was first opened. I had to hook up because you know everybody in the bar business. And I got in there, had a limo, went up there and had a blast and danced on that dance floor. Um, man, what a beautiful place. Um, but it wasn't anything. I mean, it was pretty inside and everything. There was hardly any people there. But yeah, I've been to some of the neatest places around. Um, because I was always here, there, and everywhere. I could be anywhere tomorrow. As long as I had a car with keys, and I always had money, you know, I could be anywhere. Um, I didn't have to wait to be with a man or married to a man to pay my way to get anywhere. I always worked. So, and when you work, you can get anything you want. If you want fur coats, you go out, you buy one. If you if you if you want to go eat fine dining at the Carriage Club, you go eat fine dining at the Carriage Club. You just all you gotta do is work, and there's that money, and you have anything you want. You don't have to wait for a man to come up, step up to the plate, and pay for it. You just go out and get it. That's always been my rule, you know. So I don't know, but yeah, there's some neat place around. But yeah, I would have really liked to go into Dollywood or Dollyland or whatever that is. Um, and maybe one day I will get to. Hopefully, it won't be in really crappy cold weather. But yeah, I would have liked to have seen that. And still, leave that as an open option. You know, the Carolinas is real nice. I was in the Carolinas like 2 years ago. Um, and that was really beautiful out that way. In Virginia and West Virginia and North and South Carolina and Annapolis and New York. And I was in all that, and that was really wild. Not sure in CA if it is worth a trip to see the Walk of Fame. What do you mean in CA? I don't know what you're talking about. And I don't know what you're talking about, the Walk of Fame. I don't know what that is. You have to tell me what you're trying to say there. You talking about Colorado or something? Or are you trying to talk? Or are you trying to say, oh, the Walk of the Stars? CA is not California. That's just like the idiots. It's like Cali. Who freaking hillbilly is that? There's no such thing as Cali. And if you say that to somebody that's grown up there and lived there, they're gonna think you're an idiot. Um, uh, the Hollywood Walk of Stars, is a dirty, nasty place. Okay, and it's out in front of the Grauman's Chinese Theater. I've been to Grauman Chinese Theater 3 times in my life as a child. My mother used to love to go to that theater. It's really beautiful. And well, all the time I lived out there, I've always done it CAL or CALIF. So, and I've lived there most all my life. But anyway, and I've never heard anybody say in Ca. So I don't know what that is. So, but anyway, uh the Walk of Fame is not what it was like when I was a kid. Even when I was a kid, it was kind of funky dunky. That's a bad area. Anything down in the downtown LA and all that area. I mean, even I don't even know if the Brown Derby's still standing out there. I remember the Brown Derby when I was a little bitty kid. I don't know if it's still out there. It was a big brown derby hat. The building was concrete, and it was a giant derby, and you went in there to go eat and stuff. And that was a big historical site, just like the big donut place with the giant donut over it. And there's still a couple of the restaurants still exist in downtown LA that were there many, many years ago before I was even born. They've kept them as historical factors. But California is busy ripping everything up because everything's poisonous and asbestos, and they rip everything up, tear it down, and put some new crap in there that's $1 million. It's the strangest thing I've ever seen. Um, but the Grauman Chinese Theater is nasty poo poo looking. If it's even still standing, I don't even know that it's still standing because it was in really bad order when I had gone there after I had even left home. I went out there to go, see the stars and stuff. Shoot, that sidewalk's so foul and so nasty, and the bums, and they don't even take care of it. Okay, it's all cracked up. People have vandalized and all that stuff, and they used to have a thing where they had the footprints, handprints, and then a big gold star and all that. And some of those stars were put in after actors and actresses were already dead when they should have been awarded while they were alive. But it's not what you think it is. It's dirty, nasty. That area is a bad area. LA County. This is where you separate the fools from the people that really know. LA County covers 3/4 of the state of California. LA is Los Angeles. The old timers call it Los Angeles. LA is a nasty, dirty, toilet bowl, dangerous place that surrounds the LA County Jail. And what surrounds the LA County Jail? Lots of factories. That's the district, the Schmata district. That's where all the clothes were built for Beverly Hills and everything else. All what they call sweatshops because I can't afford to air condition those big old buildings. And it's all for manufacturing. That's what downtown LA is. Downtown LA is nasty, poo poo, dirty. It is not the holiday. It is not the place to hang out. It's not the place to go. It's not even a place to drive. Man, I was down there in the daytime one time. I had a car drive completely over the hood of my car and kept on going through the light. Yeah, just like nothing. You want to have two sets of power door locks because they're going to try to pull your door open when you're driving down the street and try and jump in your car. LA, Los Angeles is toilet bowl trash. And that is not the place to go. I used to go when I was young, when I was in college at UCLA, and I used to go to downtown LA to go get fabric samples from the big factories and the makers. And I used those when I was designing clothes for people. And mostly when I was doing a lot of prom gowns at that time. And so I could go to downtown LA and get free samples of silk and all that stuff and take it to my client and let them select what they wanted. And then I ordered that fabric and went down and picked it up in downtown LA. Downtown LA is a worthless piece of crap. It is caca. LA is only downtown LA. It's not Santa Monica. It is not Marina Del Rey. It is not Culver City. It's freaking Los Angeles. I would never mass produce crap. That's not what I do. I design clothes for people. I do a high end where I only do one of a kind and no reproduction, and then I do a limited production. I don't ever mass produce. I want nothing to do with mass production at all. Not at all. 100% never. It's not worth it. Who wants your dress? And there's 10,000 more of them around the world. Nobody does. I design and create my clothes. I've done it for years. I have college education in it, a lot of education in it. And that's just what I do. I don't do that kind of thing. I was offered a job at Jag Jeans on my first college degree of fashion design and merchandising at UCLA, and I turned it down because I had no interest in designing jeans. I don't like jeans. Jeans are what I use to climb into my car and work on it. And jeans are nothing like what they used to be. They were a real big thing. When they were patchwork jeans and lace up the side and all that fancy stuff. But that's not what it is now. Yeah, but no, the uh, Hollywood Star Walk of Fame, and all these other things they call it it's dirty, nasty poo poo. I was never impressed. I went back there several times, hoping they would renovate when they were trying to save the Grauman Chinese Theater, and which is a very famous theater. And like I say, I've actually gone in that theater and saw movies. When I was a kid, my mother would take me up there. Very famous place, but it's nasty outside. It was nasty then, and it was worse years later when I grew up. And we go out there, I'm like, this is sure a dump. They all talk about it and all this stuff. Well, it was a big deal way back, like in the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. It was a nice place then, I guess. I wasn't around for all that, but you know, it's dumb. They don't maintain any of that. They've actually tore up a lot of it, and there's a guy on YouTube that has a bunch of that stuff. Has the footprints, handprints, and all that stuff where they gutted a bunch of stuff off the street. And see, a lot of the museums and stuff closed. There was so much, way back, and a lot of that stuff doesn't exist anymore. Just like the Liberace Museum, he has a foundation that supports all that. That's where all his money went. It didn't go to the AIDS Society. He never would admit he had AIDS, but they told him he had it, and they told him they could treat him. He refused it. He said, "No, I don't have AIDS, and I'm not taking any medicine." That's why he died. Um, but yeah. So I mean, yeah, it's a shame because all that stuff should have been saved, and with all the taxes and all the money that the state makes, they could afford to save that. But you have to understand the homeless situation back home is so bad. When my daughter and I went out there just a couple years ago, the homeless had actually migrated all the way up into Marina Del Rey, which was just unbelievable. I just can't even fathom that. Um, it's really messy. It is really messy, and it's worse now. I mean, they literally have people like in tents and stuff on the sidewalk outside your house, living there. Okay, and in cars and vans parking in front of your house, and shitting in your bushes and stuff. I mean, it's messed up. They can't even keep Venice Beach clean. You know, they never allowed people to live or sleep on that damn beach years ago. You can sleep in your car, parked next to the beach years ago. Can't do it now. But that they got people camping out there, dragging couches and beds out there on Venice Beach, a tourist attraction. You know how many times I roller skate down Venice Beach? A bazillion million times. I worked out at the weight pen every single day, 6 to 8 hours a day. You know, I did photo shoots down there. Okay, when I was seriously pumping iron. It's not like that anymore. It's nasty poopy doo. I mean, my brother right now is offering to rent me a storefront at Venice Beach because it's total tourism. That's what everybody comes to Venice Beach. And it's like, I'm like, I don't know, is it even safe down there? And how am I going to sell if all the bums are like dragging beds in front of my shop and laying down on the asphalt there? Because Venice Beach is like a street. You can't drive cars on there, but it looks like it, but you can't. It's just like a whole street goes all the way to Santa Monica Pier. So, yep. But I mean, California was interesting in the old days. And I remember a lot of dirt roads out there and stuff in Orange County. And you know, um I lived in San Francisco for a short period of time, and all it ever did was freaking rain. Um, but romantic city, and it's great if you're drunk. I mean, I used to drink back in the day. I wasn't drunk, but I used to drink, and the party places were fun. But I mean, San Francisco for me was like going to eat at the Gold Mirror, which is the best Italian food around out on Terravale Canyon. And then all the little clubs up and down that street. You just walk around everywhere. You don't even have to drive. You've never been to California? Sadly? Why would you say sadly? You should be happy. There's not. It's not what you think it is. Now it is entirely too many people. There's no parking. Okay? All I got is parking meters. There's no parking lots. When they used to have a gas station on all four corners and you picked out the one with the best price, they don't have that anymore. They have a gas station about every 5 miles. I always wanted to go. For what reason? It's not worth it now. Unless you're going to Carmel and you got a pocket full of money. You go as a tourist, I hope you got a lot of money. You know how expensive California is? If you smoke, you're looking at $10 a pack of cigarette. Okay? If you want a Coke to go in a styrofoam cup, it's $12 for a large one. In a styrofoam cup, it's not even crystal. If you want to eat to-go food, like you go to the shopping mall, where they have all that different food in the shopping mall, guess how much that is to have lunch there? To walk up to some joint, it looks like a cafeteria, and wait in a line with a tray and pick out the stuff you want, and you get your drink and your food and all. It's $25 a person for whichever food you pick, whether it's Taco Bell, Kentucky Fried Chicken, or Chinese, or whatever it is in the mall. $25 a person. My brother goes to have hamburgers with all the old dudes, okay? And he's like 77 now. Okay? Goes out with all the old dudes after they shoot pool all day, every day. And they go out and they'll have hamburgers. And it's $25 for a Coke and a hamburger and a fry. Fry's $14. Are you kidding? God, for $25 you could feed all four of those people over here in Fort Walton, Florida, in a really nice restaurant for that kind of money. And it won't be like one of these fast food joints like McDonald's or Wendy's or something. It'll be at a local restaurant where they cook it fresh with like real meat. No, California, there's nothing to really see in California anymore. It's really sad. It's changed so much. And it's grotesque expensive. I don't know how they live out there now. I don't know how the grocery store, the gasoline, the rent. I don't know how people live because the rent is fierce, and it's worse now. It's got to be double now, because when Babe and I went back a couple years ago, it was $2,500 for a 1-bedroom and no utilities, and it's $10K to move in. $10K. And I'm not talking moving into Bonaventure or something. I'm talking about just a little 2-story apartment complex. So it's changed for the worse, I would say. Well, yeah, I would say so. I've lived all over the state of California. I've been all over the state of California. I grew up there. My favorite runs, the places I've lived and hangouts is Santa Monica, Marina del Rey, Beverly Hills, Century City, Westwood, parts of the valley, and then down over like Balboa Island and Newport Beach and all that kind of stuff's nice, and Corona, and then Carmel. But I mean, it was different back then. Where I'm at right now is just like it was back then. It's just almost like close your eyes and there you are. This is like where I grew up. But it's not. It's not California. It's Florida. Yeah. And when I was a kid, my big dream was to go to Florida and go to the Disneyland in Florida. Yeah. And all the old people's dream that live way up north, they all want to move to Florida. Well, guess what? I think they got the right idea. Because I think Florida is one of the cheaper places to live at this point in the United States. Even in Oklahoma, the rents are 700 and up. Way out in Pryor Creek, Oklahoma, I was looking at rents over there. Uh, and it's just like, wow. Pandemic really did some bad things. It really created a hell. And there was a lot of people that escaped California, Arizona, and Texas. And they all migrated to other places, which has screwed up the renting. So it's hard to rent anything, because they've all jumped out. I mean, it's like emptying out New York, California. It's messed up. There's so many people. When it took me to drive from Marina Del Rey to Culver City, okay, a total of 7 minutes when I was a kid. It'd take you an hour and a half today to get there. Mm-hmm. That's a fact. There's too much traffic. It's sickening. I heard due to the pandemic, landlords request 3 to 6 months rent. Where? Everywhere? There's some cities that are doing that because landlords aren't going to take that risk again. But, I mean, where are you talking about in particular? What state? Just everywhere or any particular state? Because I'll tell you, when I rented my first apartment in California, it cost me first, last, cleaning, security, and all that kind of crap. A lot of states, nowhere in particular. Well, yeah, because people got burned. I mean, have you ever been a landlord? I have. And I've also managed property twice. Um, when you got people who sit on their ass and they're collecting damn $1,000 checks and unemployment and everything else and not paying you any rent for a year and a half, how would you like it? Most people that buy property to rent is because it's an income. They don't just buy it because they got extra house laying around. They buy it for income. They buy it for income so they can retire one day. Okay? So they need that income. 80% of those people are investors. They will buy one property, tie that property up with a bank to buy another one. Okay? And it's kind of like playing the game of Monopoly. So you keep buying and you keep charging rents, and you buy another one and you charge some rents. And it's just like, whoever dies with the most toys wins. So that's what it's there for. The pandemic destroyed so many landlords to the point of they lost their own houses they lived in because people didn't pay rent. I know a guy right now in town, a good friend of mine, that did not pay rent, and he was off of work for 2 weeks, and then claimed that pandemic, blah blah blah, which was bogus. He actually got evicted. He still owes that complex over $5,000. That's right, and they even took him to court because he's stupid. But he never paid any of their rent ever. Do you know how much that complex ate? $5,000 in back rent. That's stupid. In the South, landlord just gets a gun. They'll take the windows off your house. They'll take the doors off. They'll get you out. But, it's people that have sat for a year and a half and not paid any rent at all and got all that government money and then turn around and went, you can't evict me. Guess how many of them were put on the street really quick? I paid rent, and I was put out in 5 days by sheriff order. I paid rent in advance. Okay? It's like, these people that sat on it. I had people tell me, oh, man, my son's been staying at this one place 6 months. He hasn't paid any rent, and they can't put him out. And they can't put you out. Well, you still owe that money. For the whole rest of your life, you still owe that money. The government excused nothing. The government is not paying your old back rent. Okay? You owe that money. If you walk out that door at any point in time and you didn't pay rent for that pandemic, you still owe that money. And I want to see you rent something. I'm glad I don't have that reputation because I bet nobody want to rent to me for the whole rest of my life. You know? Well, it's not just the eviction, it's the credit report. And if they sat there a year and a half, you're talking, 10, 15, $20,000 in rent that was never paid. You think somebody wants to rent to you after you say, well, it was pandemic, so I didn't pay the landlord rent. They're going, not here. Bye. Because they don't want to go through it themselves again. But I personally know owners that end up losing their homes, their businesses, all kinds of stuff over renters that didn't pay because that was their income. When their other businesses got closed for the pandemic and weren't able to operate, their backup, which is their rental properties, was what supports them. And these people didn't pay rents, and these people end up forfeiting their businesses, their own homes. That's not fair. How would you like it? I bet you wouldn't like it. I mean, I really believe that the government should have jumped on it quicker. I think the government should have turned around and said, okay, we're going to go into lockdown and we will pay everybody's rent and utilities. That would have been a much better game plan. Right off the top. You can tell stay home, then pay for everything because we just can't sit here and be without food, gas, utilities. We just can't sit here and rot and lock down because of some horrible sickness. Our government is the richest government in the world. They should have taken care of everybody. They should have made a deal with the utility companies to continue utilities and pay it, to freaking cover rents and all that. They kept talking about all that, but did you see them do it? Well, no. It's just like the school loan thing. Biden comes and goes, oh, we're going to forgive all these school loans, $50K and under. Have you seen that yet either? I haven't seen it, But yeah, it hurt. The pandemic hurt a lot. So you have a lot of landlords directly out of the pandemic. The first 6 months of the pandemic, I saw real estate, okay, all over Florida, all over a couple of other states. And landlords were saying, we want 2 months in advance rent, which is dirt cheap. In California, since I was a kid, it's always been first, last, security, damage deposit, and a cleaning deposit. So back then, you're talking like $1,000 to getting in a, okay place. Okay. And you're talking rent. It was $250, $300, something like that a month for a fairly nice place. But, in today's day and age, that fairly nice place you're talking $3,000 a month place before the pandemic. So, yeah. Yep. But, the pandemic has really done a number to the world all the way around, and especially in the United States. I mean, rental properties. I posted a thing the other day on YouTube. Rental properties average rent is over 1,000 just about everywhere. From California to Florida, and I've listed one other place, and that's just that's kind of expensive. This area here was 600 to 800 a month and 1,000 on the water, and I'm talking about overlooking the water, balcony where you sit and eat breakfast, overlooking the water by the bridge. I mean, living right on the water where you walk, 10 foot and there's a wave. Yeah, not now. If you'd be lucky if you touch something for 2K around here, you know. And there's nothing for rent. If something comes up, it's going to be really expensive, and some tourist is picking it up because there's so many people. There's a lot of people from California that have come over here. Um, it's a lot of tourists have moved over here and not gone back. So, but yeah, it's hey, thanks for all the thumbs up, you guys. You guys rock. But yeah, no, it's sort of like buying a car. You always got to test drive it a few days before you settle on the deal. And just like relocating, it's the grass is not always greener on the other side. You will take losses. I mean, I cried for 4 weeks before I moved to Oklahoma. I was like, oh my God. And I've been to Oklahoma several times before that for to visit my daddy's relatives. And, it's okay for about a minute and then it's like time to go. It's just really country. I like surfing. I like the beach. I'm a surfer chick, 100%. I like good weather. I like to be able to work on my cars or do whatever outside. Work on my yard. Just, wrenching around, all that. Um, I don't drink or do drugs. I quit all that before I had kids, so I don't do any of that. But I can still walk into a club and drink a Coke. That's not a problem. But I just don't go out. I've never really had a lot of time to go out because I've always worked. Now I'm working harder than I ever have in my whole entire lifetime, period. And I'm tired. I'm tired. Um, and the money's not there. That's the bad part. I'm used to making so much money. So, but I can't give out. I got to keep on going. Right now, I'm trying to liquidate, liquidate, liquidate. That way, I can begin to relocate because at this point, it will cost $12,000 to relocate me just in moving my shop stock and supplies. And that's like about it. I don't have anything else. I donated and sold the little bit of furniture I had left. The other storages were all stolen. Um, so all I have is 90% of what I own is my retail stock and supplies to make it with, and I have very little of everything else left. So, yeah. So, but I'm gonna stay open to different things, and if I could get a chance to get away and go travel about and see what's going on in other places, and you know, look at places for rent and stuff like that, I would do it, but I don't have time. I can't stop. I've got to keep on selling and get this stuff knocked down because I'm just not seeing 12K to truck my stuff across the states. I'm just not seeing it. I really think, you know, it needs to be reduced. So if I could sell a lot of this retail stock would do me great. I mean, yeah, I could move it and relocate it, but I'm still losing money moving it. I can always make it again. That's the thing. But I've got 10 tons of retail stock and it needs to be sold off. And that would be so good because it would cut down what I've got. But yeah, so, I don't know. But yeah, California's always been very expensive to rent. Whether it be a retail storefront or, um, an apartment or a house because there's no land there. I was talking to a guy the other day who was real obnoxious from Enid, Oklahoma. He inherited all the family's property and the farm and he incorporated it and all that, and he was over here. And I saw his tag and I was like getting ready to welcome him to Florida kind of thing. And he was cocky as hell and said everybody in California was stupid and he said, the worst part was, that it was just so, smoky. So, well, I grew up there. They always had smog. Are you kidding? And then they didn't smog control buses and tractor trailers, but they did it on cars, which was retarded. Because when a bus or a tractor trailer went by you, they dumped ashes all over your flipping car. And it's like, how are they so strict on cars and they won't take care of that? And that's the stuff that makes a nasty freaking black in the sky. But he was actually talking about the fires. And they do have a lot of problem with fire and stuff because they've made it illegal to use the water when I was a kid. It was $150 fine if you were caught washing your car in the driveway. That's right. Because California wanted to conserve, conserve, conserve. So don't burn or anything. Okay? That's the next problem. So if they don't burn control or anything like that, then everything's ready to catch on fire. And so if one spark hits it, it'll burn forever. Um, so yeah, that's a huge problem. And because they don't want to use water, well, they can't put it out. And he's like, well, this is just, he said, they need to build a salination plant. They need to build a salination plant. I said, where are they going to put it? I said, the ground in California has been long since gone since I was a kid. There's no cow fields and open fields and all that crap, unless you get out like to Banning or Riverside, where it's all Indian reservation property. But I mean, and that's not public. But I mean, there's no place to build. They built and built and built on top of building. There's not even parking lots at stores. You know, you go to 7-Eleven, you know how many parking spaces they got? Three. What is a salination plant? It's where you take and you purify water. You take this salt water and you purify it. And he's talking about recycling the salt water. He's like, you got miles and miles of coast. You just stick a plant, salination plant right down there. I said, where? Right there on the coastline. I said, no, you can't. No, you can't. Do you know, when I was growing up, they had some really great restaurants out on the coastline at Malibu and Santa Monica and all that stuff. Okay, all these so-called famous places where, you know, all the famous movie stars went, Dean Martin and Johnny Carson and all these other people hung out at. Well, the reason nobody hangs out at those anymore because they all slid off the freaking hill. Okay, Malibu and Santa Monica and all that stuff out there at 101 Highway 1 goes all the way up the side of the state, all the way to San Francisco. You take that one road, take it all the way up. That's all coastline route, and like two tunnels, and I've driven it lots of times, and the problem with it is it erodes. It keeps eroding and it keeps eroding. And so all these restaurants they had built on these cliffs overlooking the ocean. I mean, I bought the piano bar out of Moody's, which was a really famous seafood restaurant and bar, okay, just outside of Santa Monica at Malibu. I bought the piano bar because they were in a big time hurry to get rid of it because the building was falling off the cliff. I literally walked in that building when it was almost completely empty. And they were like, we will sell it to you dirt cheap today. And it's like, like the crack sale, 10 cents on the dollar. I'm like, man, I really need a piano bar for my club. And dude, I'm going to tell you, those places were all sliding off damn cliffs. So they didn't want to build anything out there. There's all the most famous places out there. That all those ones that are in all the songs and stuff they talk about, they're all out there. They all freaking roll off the damn cliff. So, uh, oh yeah. Gladstones for Fish was out there. Moody's, um, God, I can't think of that one that was in that old song. There was an old song they wrote about it, and that's gone too. But yeah, and so you don't build anything off the cliffs. You don't do it. There's no room. It's not safe. Even Topanga Canyon crumbles. And that's the cross from Highway 1 going out to the valley. That's the back road. Instead of taking the expressway, taking old 405, sit in traffic for the next 4 hours, you'll be reading a book. Literally, people sit there and read a book. But yeah, and I've told this guy, I'm like, dude, there's no place to build a salination plant. He's like, do you even know what one is? I'm like, yeah, it's purifying water. And he's like, right, well, no duh. I'm an engineer 3 times over. You don't think I know something like this? I'm not stupid. I know these things because I know it from engineering. The average Joe isn't going to know what a salination plant is unless they look it up in the dictionary, But this guy was like really obnoxious. But he walked onto the wrong person because I'm engineer 3 times over. I know what salination plant is, okay? And he's like, well, California people are just stupid. I'm like, well, I mean, I that's kind of a large generalization. But he's like, they just need to build a salination plant. They got miles of coastline there. They got water. There it is. How do you put out a fire with water? Well, the problem is there's no dirt to put the salination plant on. Period. There's no land. Do you know how many corporates moved out to Oklahoma when I lived there, buying up dirt and putting big factories out there and stuff? You know how many they were direct from California because there's no land out there? There's nothing to build on. And anything they built on top of that and on top of that and on top of that. Okay? I mean, they got a big major problem with a big structure in downtown LA they built that's like horrendously big, bigger than anything they've ever built out there, and the thing's already sinking. And it's not even, like Florida swampland. It's wet. It's not like NOLA where it's already under the water level. It's in California, it's dry. And that freaking building is sinking. And they don't even know what to do. It's because they made it too big. Somebody was paid off in the freaking permit office. They made it way too big. And they're fighting that problem right now. But yeah, there's no place to build. You can't just stick a salination plant up in there. The problem is because they outlawed the water years ago. You couldn't even wash your freaking car. The ground is so dry, it's dry for miles down. It's unfortunate, but true. Now, out in Banning and Riverside, out at Morongo Indian Reservation and all that, they have put up these big propellers, miles of them, real tall. And they're actually what they are windmills. Okay? You look at it and go, what is that? What is that for? It looks like a real jet air propeller. And it's way up high. And there's hundreds and hundreds of these things. And there's nobody out there, no building, nothing. And what they do is they'll pump water or they generate electricity. And so they generate all their own utilities for the reservation out there. The entire reservation out at Morongo, at Riverside, out of Benning. Yep. Can there be a mini salination plant in another city, in another state? Sure can. There's a whole bunch of other states. There's no room in California. There's no land. I grew up where there was Orange County and they had farms and all that kind of stuff out there. And they still had real life and real roads. My grandfather's house had a dirt road in front of it. Knott's Berry Farm down the street. My grandfather and my grandmother raised the chickens for Knott's Berry Farm, okay? I remember when that road was a dirt road. I remember every time they'd excavate it and cut more and more of my grandfather's property back. My grandfather had the first artesian well in his backyard. That's right. Artesian water. That's right. There's no land in California. There is nothing to build on. If you only have 2 and 4 car parking at a 7-Eleven corner store, okay, and you have 10 car parking at the grocery store, what do you think? They were lucky to build a convention center out at Inglewood. And they'll probably tear that down so they have more room. There's no place to build. On the coastline, there is no place to build. That's the ultra rich now. All that in Carpinteria, Santa Barbara, Malibu, going all the way up to San Francisco. All that's big money. Carmel, that's all big money. And there's no place to build. There's no place to put the thing. California is not country. It's even in the mountains. It's not country. California is overloaded, overpopulated, and it has grown since I was a little bitty kid. They were banging on stuff and building huge stuff then, you know, and uh, it's just there's no way. There's no way they could put a salination plant. Just put one somewhere. And then even if they did, they'd have to truck the water in. And that doesn't make any sense. Because then where are they going to store it? Because there's no land to store it at either. But it's not feasible. It's a really dumb idea. It's a very country idea. And it's a very dumb idea. When this guy said California people are stupid, no, he's stupid. Because he's a podunk country MF, if you ask me, who thinks he knows what he's talking about and he doesn't know what he's talking about. You're talking big city versus out in Oklahoma, which was predominantly sugar beets and tumbleweed. Now, when I lived there for about a year, that's exactly what it was. It wasn't crap there. And even Tulsa was no great shakes. But I lived out in the freaking country, okay? There's nothing there back then. Now it's changed a lot in time. I drove past it and blinked and didn't even know I went past it. I had to turn around and go back again because I couldn't believe I missed that town I lived in because it sure didn't look like that. So, but yeah, there's no, not feasible. And don't you think they'd have done that years ago, back when they outlawed water? I mean, that's like forever ago. If they'd have thought to do it back then, they'd have done it. So that's why it doesn't exist. And salination plants, hell, that's been devised since I don't know how many years, but it's not something that is done. I mean, it's not. My favorite state, well, I've been to almost every state in the United States. So I like them all. I, you know, California used to be pretty neat back in the day, but it wasn't perfect. It's very dangerous, you know. Um, Florida is nice in different parts of Florida, but just like any other state, I mean, there's some beautiful places in Tennessee and some crappy places. The Carolinas are absolutely beautiful, but they have problems with the weathers and storms coming through. Um, I had thought for about 10 years that I was going to move to the Carolinas, but then I decided not to because they keep getting hit by storms real bad and wipe everything out. I really don't want to go to a place where it wipes out all the time. Because I already been through the nothing is forever thing. When my big house got wiped out and the insurance didn't pay, I was all done. I said, well, nothing is forever. So I really don't want to go that route again. I want to try to avoid that. Um, and I don't like being on the road all the time either. I never have. And I don't care how much money do you make. I mean, I have deadheaded from places where I was making gigantic money by the hour, and I just turned around and said, I'm done. I'm just, when I get in that car, I'm turning the key and I'm gone, Jack. And it's my happiest feeling. Couldn't wait to get back. I just want to stop the world and get off. I mean, you get tired. So, um, I've been all over the states working in my business for many, many years. And there's some very neat places all around. So that's why I'm kind of open to everything. My brother keeps bidding me out here. He really wants to move me back home to California. My daughter's dad just moved back there, but he won't last long there. His health is really, really bad. So I venture to say he might last 1 or 2 months before he passes away. Um, it was sad to see that he went back. Um, but such is life. Things change. You never know what tomorrow has to bring. But I don't have any particular selection. Just I would prefer no snow and no cold. I'm kind of done with that, but you never know. I mean, I could get a really nice place out at Niagara Falls, dirt cheap, a big place, pretty cheap out there right now. But the only thing is, Niagara Falls is New York, and it does snow and get crappy, so you never know. But all I'm trying to do now is work every day, get everything liquidated, sold off, and so it'll be easier for me to relocate. Have I ever lived in Hawaii? And no, I would not consider it because it's just too expensive. And it was expensive before the pandemic. That's a fact. Expensive before the pandemic. So I don't really have a use for that. You're talking, $3,000 to $4,000 a month rent right now today. And that's like a shack in the woods. And you don't even have city power or water or anything like that. And you have to drive for miles to go in. But um uh it just, I mean, if you have money, the problem is that cars don't last long in Hawaii because the salt in the air and the storms and everything, that the salt just eats a car up in about a year. You could have the nicest car in the world, in a year it's a rust bucket. So but it's really expensive to live in Hawaii. Grotesquely expensive. Yeah, I mean, I know people that live out there. It's gross expensive. The company I worked for 5 years wanted me to go out there, and we had 2 locations out there. And I was like, not unless you pay my way. Like, you can pay my rent, pay everything, because there is no way I would consider that. If I have to relocate to Hawaii, you're gonna be paying my rent, and I'll make my money at work too, because I'm not doing that. Especially if you have to put all your stuff at storage to go out there. Because I would not do it as a permanent effect. You want to send me out there for a month or 2, you're paying my rent. But so that has not happened at this point. But yeah, I mean, Hawaii's a very beautiful place. I mean, it's just and they don't like haoles, man. They do not like haoles. So, if you're a haole, you want to be looking like one out there. Don't be like buying that Hawaiian shirt and all that crap and be looking tourist, because they don't like them. They're not there to educate or babysit. It's just the way it is. Don't think it's stuff like in the movies, like Elvis on Beach Day and all that stuff with Annette Funicello, because it's not. They don't like flipping haoles. So, have I ever lived in Hawaii? No, and I don't want to. I don't think I'd ever want to. Now, my dad had a business in Hawaii and he used to go back and forth all the time, but I know people that live out there right now. Right now. I mean, it's pretty. And I have a cousin that's lived out there for years and years and years. But, and then I have a brother that has a motorcycle place out there, a Harley place for years out there. But yeah, I mean, you know how hard it is to get mail there? God, I used to ship out there and I stopped shipping to Hawaii because it's too much problem. It's like shipping to Canada and it's like shipping to Europe. It takes forever to get mail over there. But I mean, it's a beautiful place and everything. Just like Bermuda or Key West, Miami. I mean, it's tropical. It's nice. But I mean, if you have the money, go ahead. But I mean, the rents are just going to be just god awful and real right now. You know, and they were bad to begin with. It was always higher to live in Florida than any state in the United States. Always higher. You know, because it's Hawaii. I mean, even to buy houses out there, it's pretty high. You could look on the internet. They have real estate brokers showing houses and stuff. You'd never believe it. Mm-hmm. Yep. About the cheapest houses, the ones by the volcano. Mm-hmm. And any day, That volcano can erupt and melt your house off the face of the earth. Yep. Yep. That, I mean, uh, I'm just staying open to the future. I don't know yet. I'm just seeing what the world has to offer at this point. All I know is I got to work every day to get the stuff sold off so I can truly make a move. Because I mean, I could go tomorrow. I could go tomorrow and have all this stuff shipped and everything, but I'm trying not to get into that kind of money. I think there's a better way. I mean, it would be nice if I just did the run and jump, because I could retail. The money's really good in California. I could retail 5 and 6 times the price of what I'm retailing at right now in California. But the money's there. But it's every time I visited, I couldn't wait to leave. I've been back a million times. It's like, you could ask my daughter when we went. It was like we couldn't wait to get out of there. you know, it's just, I mean, we were there to see family and stuff, and that was the best part. But everything else bit, parking, food, costs, hotels. I mean, that hotel was 175 to 300 a day, and that just was ridiculous. And 175 is freaking a toilet bowl dump with hookers and drug dealers standing out front of it. It's just so expensive, you know. But you know, that's why different places are different. That's for sure. You know. But anyway, I'm gonna jump off of here. I've got to get some more work done on the internet. I've got to check some listings and see what's going on. I did some price changes today, and I'm kind of locked in. I'm trying not to list anymore so I don't get a bill, because I can't make any money if I'm making bills. So I got to go do some more work, and hopefully there'll be no tornadoes this evening. I was really shocked when I saw that on the phone. I didn't even hear that alert, oddly enough, because it's an alarm on my phone. It'll come through as an alarm on any emergency weather, and I set it up that way, and I obviously slept right through that. Uh, and the first thing I did was look out the windows of the car to make sure the car was where I parked it, because I went, oh no. I thought about my friend in the trailer house that was moved 2 miles down the road and was missing his newspaper, and he was really mad at the newspaper guy because he didn't come. It's because his house was moved in his sleep. But anyway, I hope you guys have a great one. I thank you so much for dropping by, and do something kind for a stranger, and I'll talk to you in the next one. I love you.